Good evening, everyone. On behalf of CATS, Center for Advancement of Traditional Building Technology and Skills, I welcome all the speakers and each one of you to the Play Story session of Festival of Places 2020-21, jointly hosted by Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, New Delhi, and CATS. The Festival of Places is an initiative of CATS, a not-for-profit organization working in the area of heritage conservation, management, and advocacy since 2001. We have been working with a vision to highlight local heritage assets, empower local communities, and make heritage conservation participatory and sustainable. An effort such as ours requires technical and financial assistance as well as patronage. You can support and participate in our multiple initiatives and programs by volunteering your skills and contributing financially. Your donation, however small, can help us together contribute to the conservation and protection of our fast disappearing, unprotected, and hitherto unknown heritage assets. Donations to CAS entitles donors to get tax exemption from under Section 80G of the Income Tax Act 1961. For volunteering your skills for our initiatives, please write to us at info@catsindia.org. You can also support us by buying our heritage souvenirs that raise awareness about unprotected heritage assets in our cities and towns. Do visit Arash, the Heritage Craft Collection, on our website www.indiaheritagehub.org. We at CATS feel very strongly about the dismal state of public spaces in our cities and firmly believe change in the way we think, talk, and use public spaces can only begin at the grassroots by creatively engaging people with places and empowering them to make a difference to the places and spaces around. The Festival of Places, an initiative by CATS, is an idea born out of the spirit of volunteerism to come together, collaborate, co-create, and celebrate places that nurture health, happiness, and foster community living. The Festival of Places aims to bring people, places, and memories and their interrelationships at the forefront of public discussion. It envisions to investigate places, the people who inhabit them, the collective and individual memories that are integral to places, and present them a new way to leverage discussions on the future of public spaces. The festival provides an opportunity to people for sharing their personal narratives. Moreover, the festival aims to help discover the much overlooked human dimension of places. The main highlight of the festival this year is Play Stories, a series of online storytelling sessions that will help understand the hidden dimensions, multiple interpretations, and varied memories associated with places, highlighting their distinct characteristics as well as unraveling the bond that people have with them, a connection that lives through their experiences. The storytelling sessions by professionals, scholars, and students from diverse fields focuses on public spaces, have been planned around the theme of exploring memory in places. In our last Play Story session, we talked about the language of the ruins, their identity, and how they give a magical hue to open spaces around them. Today, we again bring back the focus on open spaces, but in a contemporary context. We begin this session of storytelling with a play story titled House of Leaves. Our storyteller for the session, Ms. Sparda Mehta, will be narrating her experiences and memories around Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Park in Saibabad. She will take us around the place and explore the different ways in which people connect with the park and why such places are so special. The place expert for the session, Mr. Vikas Kanodia, Chairperson IUBI DNCR, will expand the narrative around Lohia Park and bring out the significance and the essence of the place. This session is going to bring forth some very interesting experiences, memories, and interpretations of such public spaces. Our storyteller Sparda grew up in Ghaziabad and graduated from DLF Public School, Ghaziabad. She is currently a second-year student in Sushant School of Art and Architecture, Bachelor Program of Architecture. She is an ambitious and passionate, self-motivated individual having interests across a variety of fields like architectural design, real estate development, organizational psychology, and economics. She is easily able to interact and communicate with a variety of audiences. She has completed courses like branding and identity design, organizational psychology, and real estate development. Her soft skills include leadership and management. Our place expert, Mr. Vikas Kanodia, is a practicing architect and urban designer with a professional experience of more than 20 years. He's a founding partner at his firm Studio Code in New Delhi. His urban design and master planning expertise includes both greenfield and brownfield projects with varied scale, context, and complexity. He has been a team member for the preparation of an urban design strategy report for the Delhi Metro Corridor along Arvindo Marg for Delhi Urban Art Commission. His architectural projects have focused on the design and execution of small to large scale projects across India. He has special interest in buildings for science. He is a recipient of the Economic Times Saint-Gobain Smart Green Award and IIID Design Excellence Award North Zone for innovative use of materials, sustainability, and craft integration. He is presently the chairman at the Institute of Urban Designers India, Delhi NCR Center. IDI DNCR is spearheading various urban design programs and cooperation from its members. He has been academically associated with School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, and Sushant School of Art and Architecture, Gurgaon, as a visiting faculty in the Architecture and Urban Design Department. He has juried and lectured at various institutions across India on subjects such as urban renewal, planning and design of new towns, urban infrastructure, and local area plans. After the play stories by our speakers, we will open the session for questions and answers. Please write the questions in the chat box and we will take them one by one. Do let us know if you wish to ask the questions yourself. We now begin our walk through Lohia Park with Sparda. Over to you, Sparda.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, ma'am. I'm so honored to be a part of this wonderful program. The place I have selected is approximately 15 years old and still exists in the public realm. The Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Park is a well-known place which acts as a breather in the now densely populated area of Rajendra Nagar and Shalimar Garden under Sahibabad. It is the largest park in the vicinity, and people all around the town come here to spend time, exercise, work out, chit chat, play, sit, and become one with nature. Its presence becomes essential for the city due to its greenery, placement of shrubs and plants like tulsi, ashok tree, guava tree, Ayurvedic plants, which enhances the character of the space through manifesting nature. Before it was developed as a park, and when MS Mayawati was BSP of the BSP was the chief minister of UP, the place used to be a marshy land with lots of eucalyptus plants. People used to mold cow dung cakes, also known as uple, by their bare hands with a curvature to be able to keep them stuck on the bark of the trees. This marshy land was used by police to do encounters as well. Other areas of Saibabad had numerous small parks, but not Rajendra Nagar. So, after a lot of requests, the Samajwadi Party agreed to convert it into a park and named it after a very famous and renowned freedom fighter and socialist, Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia. We don't get enough time nowadays to visit parks. In the hustle bustle of life, it becomes necessary to take a break and relax. So, here I share with you a video of my story and memories related to Lohia Park. And I hope you can once again remember your memories of the good old days when you visited park as a child.
Dear friends, welcome to a brief virtual tour of the Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Park in Saibabad, UP. The Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Park is an endeavor to establish a relief spot for people of all age groups. Both mud and cemented pavements are here for walking and running. The internal one round of the park is equal to 1.5 kilometers. No fee is required till 8 pm. Lush green trees reflect a good serene environment. Open gym facility is also available with 10 rupees fee. It is a city park with jogging tracks, exercise equipment, and diverse plant species in a tranquil setting. The park is covered with trees and is an ideal place to exercise and relax. The park also has a unique and modern rainwater harvesting facility within its grounds. Lohia Park is a very old park. It has extended parking available just outside the entry gates. The park is just 800 meters from the nearest metro station. It was a barren land before GDA, Ghaziabad Development Authority, turned it into a good piece of architecture and landscape design. Maintained by Ghaziabad Nagar Nigam, it becomes a part of people's daily life and promote wholesome community living with its beautiful landscape, maintained pathways, and lights that makes the park glow from within at night time. Sahibabad is a place which remains crowded and not much breathing space is available. Parks were and are a place to breathe and interact with nature. Before moving to Gurugram for my higher studies, I lived in Sahibabad with my family. This place will always remain close to my heart because a lot of my memories belong to this place. My school is just 15 minutes walk from my home and Loya Park comes on the way to my school. Loya Park acted like a buffer and gave me space to enjoy with my family and friends, and sometimes alone as well. I remember when I was young, my parents used to take me to this park and we played cricket. We did play cricket on the terrace of our apartment building, but the ball used to disappear into the adjacent building's terrace or on the road, or worst case scenario, it used to come under a car on the road. So we needed a place to play, which was close to our home as well. Lohia Park was that place. We have had picnics there too. This park has been a major part of my childhood. This was a place where I learned how to play badminton and cricket. I came here cycling with my friends after school, and we used to listen to AC/DC and Led Zeppelin on the elevated areas of the park. Public places that are essential building blocks of the city give the city its character and are part of daily life and promote wholesome community living. A lot of my memories of this place are with my family. We came here to escape from our mundane life. We played games like Pakadam Pakadai, I Spy, Pittu, football, cricket, and badminton. Due to the fact that my school was very close to the park, me and my friends used to meet here to chit chat, play music, and games. Throughout my school life, I went in various swimming and skating competitions. And for winning, it was important for me to practice and stay fit. The large space of Lohia Park allowed me to perform my daily workout and exercises. I vividly remember and cherish these memories because this place has played an important role in shaping me into the person I am. Various types of birds make their nest in the wide variety of trees. The park also has a variety of swings for kids to play and enjoy. Temporary swings are also installed in the front of the park during festive seasons. The cost per head is very cheap, and parents can also sit next to the swings and watch their kids play. The park's huge sprawl invites visitors, drawing them into an interior where solidity and airiness, space and light are woven to induce an intimate dialogue with nature. The statue of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia shadows over us as it is placed in the middle of the park, with lights attached at the bottom of the statue that make it glow at night time. The statue is so huge that it is visible from the front gates. RCC pillars make the space strong and sturdy. Solar panels are installed, and with its energy, all the lights and generators are powered up. Steps have been efficiently used around the park. The steps lead to some of the higher parts of the park from which the ground becomes easily visible. Some steps lead to the statue, some lead to the resting spaces like iron benches. Fountains have been placed as we move ahead from the gates to the statue, which enhances the beauty of the place and gives birds a place to quench their thirst. Regiments for sitting, like iron benches, have been provided at regular intervals. People exercise and do yoga to the rhythm of these birds chirping. The park resonates with the sound of birds from morning to evening. Occasional yoga, karate, and music meets are held in the park, where people with similar interest gather and share their thoughts, views, and utilize this space for hosting events. Amazing combination of grass and tiles has been used to provide direction and to manifest nature. The graded slopy surface makes the place more interesting. Shelter points and guest house is present inside the park. Seasonal flowers bloom and make the experience of nature livelier. Leaves of plants are used to make compost too. Basic necessities like drinking water and toilets are also available. In the hustle bustle of life, it becomes necessary to take a break and relax away from laptops, computers, and mobile phones. People, places, and memories get connected through experience. When I enter the park gates, I instantly experience hierarchy as I move from the noisy, jammed roads outside to the airy, green, open space inside. Consequently, as we move to the deeper section of the park, we experience another feeling of in because of the presence of variety of trees in large amount. We feel secluded from the city and instead are surrounded by nature. The birds chirping, the sun rising, the wind blowing, and strangers passing you by. It all gives you energy as they jog and run past you. People use this place to click pictures with family and friends, to play football and cricket, for jogging or running, and to spend some alone time. Some use it to warm up and exercise and to play competitive games with friends. Women come to chat and gossip. Nature lovers use the park to watch the sunset and sunrise. Some people prefer to do yoga. Kids like to play on the temporary swings. And some might even wander around the library. Apart from humans, animals visit the park as well. Park maintenance includes managing green space as well as repairing and maintaining park buildings and structures. The park right now is filled with dead leaves and dustbins with overflowing garbage, broken swings, and not working lamps. Park maintenance includes a broad range of tasks to keep a park enjoyable for all visitors. Once the spring season commences, park maintenance staff will be busy clearing away dead plants from winter, dry leaves, and other debris that accumulates during the off season. Bushes and trees require pruning, and fallen branches must be cleared away. Maintenance staff clears flower beds, fertilizes perennial plants, and enriches the soil for new annuals. The three entry gates allow people to engage with the park in large numbers. ESI Hospital is in the front. The park touches Sahibabad on one side and Rajendra Nagar on the other. The road in the front is 80 foot wide. Outside the park gates, we find vendors who sell medicinal juice, e-rickshawalas, and temporary health checkup camps being organized. Two badminton courts are placed just next to the park. I remember back when I was young, this place was never empty. You had to stay and wait for your turn to come. Even though I haven't visited the place in a long time due to Corona, my bond between this place and its memories remain intact. The joy I once felt here with my family and friends can never be taken away from me. I still feel it today as I visit the park once again.
Thank you very much, Sparda, for your very passionate narration and detailed, exploration of the park. Would you like to conclude your video
Uh,
with us? Yeah.
yes, ma'am. Before making this video, I had little to no idea about the history of Lohia Park, and Festival of Places gave me an opportunity to analyze public spaces from a different and focused perspective of even like how the impression of a city is formed mainly by the quality of public spaces. uh, if the place is not pleasant and not preserved, or if they transmit a sense of insecurity, we will seldom return. And this park has an upper hand in this category because it is very attractive and catches the eye of anyone who passes through the area. And secondly, how places influence people and their thought process. We have observed that public areas shape community ties in neighborhoods. They are places of encounter and facilitate political neighborhoods. They they are places for interaction and exchange of ideas that impact the quality of urban environment. So that's my take from it.
Thank you so much. Now, I will now invite Vikas to please, start your narration and understanding and experience with Loya Park.
Sure. I think, thank you, Spardha, and very nicely you narrated the whole journey. And you took us through the entry gate and through the park. And it was very interesting, how you actually, showed us all around the park. It was very nice. And you talked about multiple things, whether it was facilities, whether it was experiences, all together. And, it's a very successful, public space today. And it's also it's located in a very dense, urban district, which is the NCR region after the East Delhi. So this is almost like an oasis for them, because I know this place because for my belongingness to this place has been for the past 10 years, and after I was my wife is from Saibabad, and we had right from my childhood, the public spaces have been very important to me, and we always tend to reach out to these public spaces over the weekends. So it has been like a recluse, from our daily schedules, from our daily work schedules. That's where we find the respite and the retreat, and place to rejuvenate ourselves. So we always tend to, so 10 years back, when I went to Saibabad, and we were looking at where are the public spaces where over the weekend can we go. And we literally googled, and we found this large green space which was there. I said, okay, let's go and find out what is this. And it has been an amazing place, and we have been really visiting over the past 10 years now. And it's a good opportunity for me to put together small presentation, which actually, talks about, my memories, over the past 10 years. So I just share my screen, just a sec. So yeah, I mean, also what you talked about, and also what Jan Gill talks about, he says, cultures and climate differ all over the world, but people are the same. This is a play. These public open spaces are, magnets which actually keep drawing human beings to themselves, and we also are always attracted to these, urban open spaces. Why that's so? We have a small park in our neighborhood, but these district level larger open spaces where the community comes together, and as you said, these public open spaces are actually, actually shows the culture of a place. So it's very important, how these places are, and who is coming to these places. And he also talks about they will gather in public if you go give them a good place to do it. So very interestingly, this place happened very recently, and I know families in Saibabad or over in Ghaziabad, used to actually come across all the way to Yamuna, cross the river, and that's where our old cities are located. Whether it's Old Fort, whether it's all the Lodi Gardens or the India Gate lawns. So those are the open spaces they were used to go to. But this is a new site of relief for them, where they don't have to travel that long a distance, and the a public open space is right next to them. So this is something, which is a big relief for this whole region, and they connect to this public space, and everybody should have this public space. I think public space should be a human right, and in our cities, and we should ask for them, wherever our regions are within, and within our reach, within our walkable distances. So that's what Jane Gill talks about. Some of the memories that I have of this park, people, this is an open space which fosters mental, physical, and spiritual health. I mean, people play and get involved in multiple, recreational activities, whether it's cricket, football. There are places where, spiritually people connect. They worship the trees. And it has been part of our culture. We worship various trees, whether it's people, whether it's neem, whether it's tulsi, all these species, we worship and we connect to them as part of it, when we are in the open nature. And some people, it's just a recluse. They just want to, rediscover themselves. They want to sit, think about themselves, So there are various kinds of activities which this open space does. And what is important is also the scale of the space, the scale of the space where you can perform these different activities. So it enables you to do various kinds of activities and also connect with the nature. It's very important today, to understand that, which that the human environment, we always talks about humanizing cities, that human beings are actually made for walking. The purpose of human beings is actually to walk and experience the city while they are walking. When the experience can happen at the speed at which we walk, when we walk, we notice multiple things. We notice things around us. We notice the texture of the grass. We notice the texture of the pathway. We notice various kinds of environment. We can see, that leaves have a texture. We can see the sky. The sky also have different gradations of colors. So all the sensory perception actually opens up when we are as in, in this open public spaces. And it's, human perception happen at that horizontal ground, and there is a cone of vision through which we see and perceive things. And the public open spaces are actually meant to do that. And that's why, these are very, very important places as we come out. You can find people, and when you see people, what are they there for? It's a place where you can do performances. It's a place where you see and you want to be seen. It's a place where you want to encounter other people. It's a place where, we connect with other people socially. So this is very interesting. There's also the Loya Park, there's a central podium. As you enter, that's the vista where, on the top of this is the statue of Dr. Ram Manohar Loya. And this place, which is actually paved with granite, which is very rare to see that, granite has been used in a government project, but this has become a place where children can skate, where, people can do their performances. Take a look at this video. So it's like doing your own things. And yeah, let's move forward. So it's a place where you rediscover yourself. Children meet other children here, and that's how they make new friends together. They discover their strengths and weaknesses as well as explore themselves to the next level of growth as well. Whether it's physical, psychological, mental, all kinds of growths that we are looking at. So just understanding themselves, so what we are. So, you also touched upon, how this place is and how these various undulating forms are. And it's very important to understand. And somehow, when I looked at the park, I got reminded of, something which one of my teacher, Ravindra Bhan, at SPA taught me. And he was talking about through this book, which was Design in Nature. And the ideology of Ian McHarg, where he talks about, he says, the way we occupy and modify the earth is best when it is planned and designed with careful regard to both the ecology and the character of the landscape. So as you said that, this place was actually lying vacant because of its undulating character. But it was the Lucknow Development Authority which recognized it, that this, to make this as a park. And it is very good that they actually, conceived this idea and planned this as a district park, because it was already, it had all those characters which enabled it to become a nice park. And it has a relationship which actually, merges the natural and the built environment and the character of the place. So if you look at this, that, and it's like touching the earth very, very sensitively and very, very minimally within the park. So the intervention actually is, only this much as part of the design. That's the podium that you see in the center. That's the axis, and all the rest is actually just pathways and undulating lands. So that's the, axis, and that's the platform at which Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia statue is there. So that's here. And if you see all these, because it's an elevated thing, what you get is series of these recesses and low-lying areas here, which during the monsoon actually become ponds. So it's also, doing rainwater harvesting within the ponds. And we are talking about in 2016 about the sponge cities. The sponge cities idea is already ingrained in many, many projects within our Indian cities. And this is one of them where, the water really collects in all of these, places where it's the earth there, and it basically recharges the groundwater. And large part of Uttar Pradesh, mostly don't get municipal supply of water. They're all dependent on the groundwater. So it actually is a recharge for the groundwater, this large area, and it actually supports the dense urban areas which are around them, which are all dependent on groundwater at the moment. So very interesting. The other very important part I think you touched upon is the ticketing part of the Ram Manohar Lohia. And we should talk about Ram Manohar Lohia here is because he was one of the very important socialist and a social who brought about social reform in India. And also his ideologies were also, following the Marxism and Gandhian principles, where he really stressed upon freedom and economic equality. And once you ticket a park, even if it's 10 rupees, you are basically asking, the uh, person who can't afford to get in, you're basically starting to discriminate a certain class of people, which is actually not good. It's a very, very successful place, but all across Delhi, there are, I think, 3 to 4 Lohia parks, but they don't work with the ideology of Ram Manohar Lohia, who really stressed upon this economic equality and worked in various kinds of developments for the lower class of people who couldn't afford to even live in small villages. So it's very important that even because following his ideology, Ram Manohar Lohia parks actually should remove this ticketing, and it should be open to all, because that will make it a truly a public space, which is very important for any public space to succeed. The other thing is, there is environment that we live in. There is a built environment that we live in, but how is this park environment is different? The park environment is different because that's where we connect with the other kinds of living beings, which is the flora and fauna which exist in the region. So you find and connect with different kinds of species of trees, different kinds of animals, birds, and it's all very, when you see them moving, when you see them flying, there is this dynamism which always interests us, and that's where actually where the humans interact with the other living beings, whether it's the tree species, whether it's the animal species, and that's where we connect with all of them. So this balance is very important, and we need to think about them as we plan our cities. So it's very important how we move on to our next centuries. These open spaces will be very, very important for us to be on the earth. And yeah, I mean, let's I think COVID last year has really taught us a very important lesson, and something which Sir David Attenborough talks about, that in times of crisis, the natural world is the source of joy and solace. It produces the comfort that can come from nothing else. So you can see there are that, like, there is an image of Sundar Nursery, there is an image of Nehru Park. I mean, these parks have been crucial, where we have again, connected with nature, and where we could actually go out, yet maintain the social distancing, and yet connect with all the nature all around us and experience it through our senses, through all our senses. Yeah, so that's where I'll, end. And thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Vikas, for this very interesting, narrative around public spaces and especially parks and the importance that they have in our lives. And especially, during the pandemic time, one realized that, these are the only spaces which probably can be, a source of joy for us, and places where we can, as a family go out and yet maintain that kind of physical distance. Atulya, do we have any questions from the audience?
No, we don't have any questions yet. If anybody wants to say any comments or any questions, they can unmute themselves and say.
Yes, please. You can write down in the chat box, and while we, continue our discussion around public parks. Yeah, there is one question from Smita Singh, I think.
Smita Singh asks, how large is the park?
It's around 15 acres large.
Okay. So, Vikas and Spardha, while we are talking about, public parks, open spaces provide a, wide variety of benefits to citizens of a community. One thing that comes to my mind is that, when we are talking about real estate, the closeness of the property to such kind of, community spaces adds a value to the property. Is there a
Yes.
way how we can estimate the value of open spaces? There are some intangible benefits which, as we plan the urban sprawl, we hardly, take notice of those intangible aspects. So, have you ever, kind of thought about how to, bring out that kind of, while we go about going, high rise and high density? How do we, calculate or, at least communicate across the value of such open spaces?
It's like calculating, the price of oxygen that you have. So, what is the price of oxygen that you have inhale every day?
Yes. So whenever you are, kind of talking about these public spaces and the newer developments, we are also, talking about the change in the diversity of public spaces or such kind of open spaces, I would say rather, because I feel that there has to be a diverse nature of public spaces, open spaces as well, not just manicured lawns and parks with pathways. So there has to be something called like the city forests, if we may say, like Horse Khas and such other places, or the the area within large complexes like JNU and other places, which are like a habitat for the flora and fauna, as you rightly pointed out. So how do we ensure that we can actually bring out a change in the way we think and plan these spaces, so that we have variety of these kind of open spaces?
So yeah, I think there is already a concept of self-sustaining landscapes that I think landscape architects really look at in detail. And there are various kinds of species that grow in a particular kind of region. Which are the native species that can happen within that place. So I think those are the plants and trees are available, but that's a very detailed list of things I think we'll have to get into. But there is already these concepts of self-sustaining landscapes, and landscape which are native to the land is what is being planned in many areas. Uh, yeah, and there are species like bougainvillea. There are many other kinds of species which need very less water to grow. So all those are much more recommended for this region at least.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's very important that these open spaces, public parks, actually reflect the local diversity as well. Because otherwise you just have a palette of tree species or plant species which get repeated in XYZ public parks anywhere in the country. So I think it is important that we also give some space to the local diversity of plant species, and as well as I think some not very ornamental plants, because
Of course,
usually
of
what
course.
happens is that when we plan these parks, we are always looking for flora which is more ornamental, more easy to maintain, or things like that. So I think it's very important that in this in Loya Park also we see a large
True.
part of the area which is not very many well manicured in that sense.
That is
And
true. I think this was something I was also looking at, that who actually designed Lohia Park in Saibabad. But I couldn't find the landscape architect. But yes, the Gomati Nagar, Lohia Park was designed by Professor Shahir. So he did that, and because this was, I think, is done by LDA itself.
yeah. Also, the other thing that comes to my mind when we're talking about urban parks is how can we use these urban parks as a platform to talk about climate change and such other things with people? Because instead of talking inside, closed conference rooms and school classrooms, it is better to use. What do you feel about this aspect?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
I said, when you're talking about climate change and such other environment-related issues, can these public parks actually be used as a platform to communicate these ideas with a lot of more intensity?
Absolutely. I think they have a lot of potential in them. And like I said, we are talking about
I
small.
guess we should done this call.
Sorry.
No, I think somebody's microphone is on. Atulya, can you please see?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I was saying
yeah,
that, today, we are talking about small cities,
yeah.
whereas, all these public parks have already performed like sponges in our cities, and they have
Yes,
already been, recharging the groundwater. Uh, and, these public open spaces are also can be used to give, public messages and, educate the civil society about public spaces itself as they use it. So it can really play a very important role in the future as well.
yes, yes. especially, when while we are going about, paving all the softer areas, for example, the, unpaved pathways along the roads. Generally, what we are seeing is nowadays in colonies, they are using these interlocking paver blocks to actually cover up those spaces also. So I don't know how much, it depends upon how well that thing has been executed for it to be able to recharge the groundwater. So it becomes very important that we have these connection or network of open spaces which actually can recharge the groundwater.
True. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Atulya, I think there are a few questions which are there in the chat box.
Yeah,
Sure.
Manjuba, would
Yeah.
you like to unmute yourself and ask the question? Or should I read it out?
Yeah, it's okay. I'll just ask my question. I just wanted to know about the guidelines that we have about open space reservation in the land use plans. Especially, I feel the way I have seen the development going, that the per capita green space in smaller cities as well as big cities, I'm sure, is very low. So my question was that how can we proceed towards revising these guidelines, or do you feel that there is a need for revision?
No, there is definitely a need for revision, and the recommended open space is actually 20%. But if we look at the Trans Yamuna area, specifically the NCR region, it only has almost only 10% of open space, which is also mostly in roads, and very few green open spaces. So how the Trans Yamuna has also grown in a way which was very haphazard. It actually mostly consists of a lot of unauthorized colonies, which basically got regularized over a period of time. And then the new areas also came in, but the newer areas do have the green spaces, but still it's insufficient. That 20% is almost half of it is not there. It's all more, it's moreover actually the road areas, which is actually 10%. So definitely we need to relook at augmenting this open space if possible. And also it connects the river Yamuna floodplain also, but that's an open space which we have never looked at. Zono has always been under thinking, and we still don't have any guidelines for that as yet.
Thank you.
Any more questions, Atulya?
No questions, but Neha Bandari has a comment if you want to unmute yourself.
So, ma'am, like on the topic of like how we can provide green spaces, and I guess starting from the root is the like giving the students have an opportunity to have their interest about plants, about bringing different kind of species into their zone. They could start with their local parks, or only they where they could have an interest. This could bring that interest so that in the future also, like there is that point in while planning, like people are having interest in parks, so we have to keep that point also. And also I feel like population is also a big factor why the green spaces are decreasing so much. Open spaces, people like due to population, we have to fill, we have to give people place to live. So I guess that's also reason why open spaces are becoming less and less.
Vikas, would you like to comment?
Sorry, are you asking Spardha or me?
No, I asked you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think the population has always been increasing, and something to think about, and something we also had put forward to the master plan team of 2041, that what is this limit to the population and what is the density that we are designing Delhi Master Plan 2041 for. So it's a very difficult question. They are also thinking at their end. But the migration has always been happening, and people come to the NCR region for the opportunities and aspirations that they have. So that is not unless we make other centers or other cities much better, so that the opportunities are also there and people don't need to migrate. That's the only way to control exceeding population within the NCR region.
So, yeah, it is very important that, while we raise the issue of different plant species as well, I think these parks can also act as a pool for the local varieties. And connected to this, observation, I would like to have both of you, your comments on how we can reinforce the bonding of the people with such, public parks. Although it is the obvious connection in terms of walking and, having a relaxing time outside is there. But what could be the other possible ways in which we can actually, actively engage the people around the local community there? Are there some ideas coming to your mind, Sparda?
Yes, ma'am, like how sir said that public spaces also present health benefits, like it is both physical and mental. And people feel better when they tend to be more attractive and active in public spaces. And obviously Lohia Park, it is very attractive and catches the eye of anyone who passes through. So I just think that in the public space people do become very active.
Yes, Vikas?
Yeah, no, I think associational values will develop. If the park is one is, the maintenance of the park, because people want to visit places which are well maintained, which has all the amenities with them. So the all the basic amenities, if they are there, and the rest is, I think, the relationship and the bonding is built with the nature. Because the nature, if you see the trees, if you see the birds, if you see the colors changing in different seasons for the flowers, all that actually enhance it, and the experience, changes within the park. If you visit the park in winter, it will be very different. If you visit the park in monsoon or in the summer, it will be very different. And the timings of visiting the park also changes as per, during different seasons as well. So it's the inherent quality of the nature which actually draws people, or together, and the nature together in these public open spaces, and that's where they develop a relationship to themselves. So if you see, how people were actually praying to the tree, and that's very important. That's where they connect with the nature. So that's where they actually build a bonding, and that becomes like a regular ritual, in our everyday lives. And and you want to see, other people playing. You want to see people in action. That's our human nature. You want to maybe meet people, greet people, and just stand for a conversation with someone. And that's like inherent quality of our human, or of our humans. And that's the place within the open sky where we will connect with those people, and that's what develops the associational values.
Yeah, yeah. So while these are the very spontaneous ways in which people connect with these kind of public parks, I was talking about some more organized strategy. Why can't we have a volunteer program? We take so much pride in, taking care of our own gardens, even if it is a small balcony garden that we have. Why can't we have some organized programs in which people can come and volunteer their time and, help in the maintenance of the park? Because we know that such places will always be deficit in terms of finances, in terms of manpower. So I think it is a lot of physical exercise, while you do gardening. It is meditative, it is very contemplative, and its benefits are immense. So why can't we have some kind of, organized strategy to facilitate this?
It can definitely happen, and I think even at Lohia Park, they get people to plant trees on the World Environment Day, but that's only like one day. But yes, an engagement which is all throughout. I think that it's also to do with who maintains the park. So here it's actually Lucknow Development Authority. So if the if the RWAs reach out to LDA, that is a possible way to maybe enhance these activities which we are talking about, and that will definitely build up more associational values with the public open spaces.
Yeah, true. I think it should be taken up actively because that will build a sense of belonging to that place, as well as the next time when anybody dirties that place, there becomes a social kind of an environment where people check themselves instead of having security guards with a stick in their hand going around
Yeah.
telling people not to do it. Atulya, do we have some more questions?
Yes. Neha, Smita Singh,
Yes, yeah.
you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
So, good evening. So, my question is basically about Delhi's land pooling scheme, right? We know a fifth of uh, NCT is going to be under the land pooling or is under the land pooling scheme. And when you sort of dive deep into that policy and you see how it is going to materialize, you see there is no allocation for such large district greens, 15-acre or more than that. There is no allocation for that. So the way it works is it's a 60-40, 60% goes back to the owner, 40% is with DDA, and then that 40% DDA will develop for various city level facilities, which may include green. But we don't actually, so there's no sort of green framework which will allow us to know that such district greens or regional greens will be created. So that's a real reason for alarm. So how do we, I mean, what do you guys have to think about, or maybe you've worked on that?
I think that's an expert asking the question. I think you can answer this the best.
No, that's
How do we
no,
do this?
I mean, I'm asking you because I guess you. So the reason is I'm not. I've looked at that policy in a lot of detail, and in fact we took it up as a studio to see what happens if one of the sectors is developed as per that policy, and we found that there is nothing coming there. So I don't know. You must have gone deep into that.
Yeah, it's a little abrupt at the moment. We don't know the details, but also over the past, what has happened with the mill areas is the same proportion of 40% to DDA for open spaces and 60% goes to the mills for development, and that 40% is just is a green open space which is lying there with no relationship to the built environment or the built space that are already there, which is surrounding them, or to the mill area which will be developed later. So it's like just allotting a green space, which doesn't tend to have a meaning because the interfaces with that green space are not working at the moment. So I'm a little worried with that land pooling scheme as well, but we will have to see the details as it comes, because it's very broad at the moment what they have put in the public domain.
Yeah, and if you just something to add to what you said, because I mean you said correctly, there's no relationship with the built environment. I think something somewhere, I mean just a suggestion to all of you, including IUDI and NCR, is if you look at the blue-green policy, or if you look at the sort of zonal plan framework for that area, if somehow such greens can be
we just lost your voice.
Yeah.
Are you there?
At the zonal level or at I'll type it out, Vikas. I can type it out.
No, we can hear you now. You can say, please go ahead.
Okay, so I was saying at a zonal level or at the local area planning level, some framework has to be there for green, just like you have for roads. I mean, you give hierarchy of roads as the first thing the planner does. I mean, why don't we look at a hierarchy of greens right there? I mean, that it's as a simple framework that then at least becomes something for real estate developers to follow. Otherwise, there's no context. They will, one sector will come up in one way, another sector will come up another way, and you will never get such large greens to develop like you have, like Ram Manohar Lohia Park, etc.
Absolutely. I think this Ram Manohar Park is just happened, and it's just so beautiful, and it's really has that relationship somehow, and very well got connected to the structural system of this part of Delhi. In fact, this part of NCR.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe let's look at it, and I think we can discuss it in detail.
Sure. Yeah.
I think Palash Srivastav wanted to make an intervention. Palash, are you there?
Yeah, I think I personally feel very excited when young children actually consciously make an effort to understand and connect with their greens. And it is great to know that you have done such a nice work in creating a relationship and trying to create a relationship. I think there are a number of economic activities. If you, while actually it has been discussed how social activities can be connected, but there are certain economic activities also which come to my mind and can be explored. I think between all of you there. See, one of the things is there is a composting activity from the, since this is a city park, there could be a lot of organic composting that could actually come through here, and it could actually be created. I don't know why we shun basic say nurseries to come up within the say within such open spaces which create a relationship with the community at large. The of course there has been a mention of certain say musical events, and I would add to it certain sporting events. Why should we not have a say drone show or such other things which are, which don't leave any footprint? And so that again is, I think, important for us to visualize, create a calendar, and create such activities which add to the basically the revenues which are flowing, and the relationships that connect with the open space. And Urvashi, you were right in saying that if we can create, most of these places are managed by development authorities, and unfortunately they don't have any opportunity for young students and volunteers to volunteer on specific things that they would like to, not only contribute in terms of a transformation, but also on a regular operations and maintenance. So, for instance, even the activity calendar can be something which can be volunteered by a local architecture institute or a management institute on a ongoing basis, and it can be something which can really get the students very excited in some outdoor activities. So I am actually quite excited myself from the presentation that you have made. Therefore, I couldn't really restrain myself from making these observations, but I think a fantastic effort. Great. I think please you keep doing and thinking about these spaces, because I think we started a little late in the day, but I think since you guys are have got a head start now, please do not fight shy of engaging with your authorities, engaging with your communities. Spend some little time, say, like we put as Sikhs would do, some 20% or 10%, they would set aside their money, what they earn every year for, say, voluntary work. I think we should set aside, say, 10% or 20% of our time in terms of such voluntary action. So I think, thank you so much. I just wanted to make these interventions.
No, certainly. I think that's a very, very relevant point I think you have made. And community engagement is what I think will take, things forward in our society. And that should be the future that we look at.
Exactly, and that's what is driving us. We are at Festival of Places. We are a very small team of volunteers, and I think this event is kind of somewhat successful in the sense because it is all voluntary. Everybody's all of us are very passionate about talking about public spaces, at least because we feel that unless we start talking about such issues, we will not even pay attention to these kind of aspects of our life. So thank you so much, Vikas and Spardha, for this very interesting conversation around public spaces. Now, the next play story session titled Kopai and Kowai, Landscape Stories of Shantiniketan is scheduled for 24th January 2021 from 5 p.m. onwards. Storyteller for the sessions, Mr. Kailashpati Maurya and Ms. Upma Sen will be narrating a very different story of Shantiniketan, a mosaic of many landscapes shaped by the presence of water in the river Kopai, in the nalas and pools of Khowai, and in the pukhurs of Santhal hamlets. The place expert for the session, Ms. Amita Sinha, will expand the narrative around this very unique cultural landscape that has a pastoral feel, somewhere in between rural and urban, far away from the hustle and bustle of a city. The session is going to bring forth some very interesting place stories as narrated in a day spent walking along the river Kopai, wandering through the lanes of Santhal hamlets, and being immersed in the sights and sounds of bustling hearts on the Kowai. So stay tuned for our upcoming play story. The registration link for the next session will be shared shortly. Once again, I personally thank each one of you for your participation and support to the Festival of Places. Look forward to meeting all of you again next Sunday, same time, same place. Till then, stay safe and stay happy.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you.